the events leading to that meeting with the generals by the commander-in-chief was that the RAM attacked and in fact successfully occupied the National Media Production Center.
Yes.
And there was firefighting there.
Yes.
I know because one of our soldiers is a class 71 and he reported before he was fighting back, and before he realized he was firing at his classmates who were also class 71, Gringo being
Yes.
one.
Yes.
But so pretty soon he stopped firing back because he realized hey, those are his classmates. So they were able to. Then secondly, and this is the one that triggered it, General Sotelo, who was then the commanding general of the helicopter wing,
Yes, the Air Force.
flew helicopters and they fired at us at the Malacanang grounds.
Right.
And they fired at least a dozen rockets.
Okay.
One rocket hit a platoon of Marines, and I was at the hospital. I saw two of them, one without a leg and the other one without an arm. And I don't think they survived it, but we sent them to Biluna anyway. My presidential guards, I got hit on two posts, guard posts, and one officer who happened to be patrolling around, and he got hit on his palm. My mother, because we have our quarters in Malacanang, when the bombing came, I telephoned, said, better leave, because I knew they might come back again.
Yes.
And so he was about to leave, but she was still grabbing her stuff.
Yes.
The driver has already started the engine of the car roaring, and the bombs came. It hit the car of my mother. There were maybe more than a dozen shrapnels into the car. My father then said, all right, we have reached a situation where we are in a combat phase. So he called upon the Joint Chief of Staff,
Yes.
the operations, the training, all of them. And they recommended, we have to counterattack. We cannot just sit down. We cannot just let our troops suffer and accept the bullets. We have to fire back. The president, so my father asked for a meeting with the commander-in-chief. So
Right.
that was the scenario
That's
then.
the video, yes.
So the president comes in, a little groggy because he was sick at the time, and said, "Don't fire! Don't fire! Remove your bullets in your rifles. Just point at them to show that we still have rifles." Those were the things. So my father said, "No, Mr. He felt that the president could not grasp the situation. So that's when my father stood up, and he said, "Mr. President, it is time that we have to counterattack." That was what he said. That's what I can remember. That's what he said. And of course, the president said no,
Yes.
right away.
Yes. At that point, so that was February 20.
Oh, can I add to that?
Please.
He didn't. I just wanted to clarify. He did not say let's fire at the protesters.
Yes.
Yes. And
No, you're right. It was a
it
military. It was a
and,
military.
And I should put a background because to that again, or I should make. In 1970, the student activism was at its height. They were able to ram the gate of Malacanang with a burning bus, and they were able to open it. At that time, then the students started rushing
Yes.
into the gate. The head of the security to protect the gate and the perimeter of Malacanang was the Metrocom commander.
Yes.
He had a direct line with the president, and my father was beside the president, and he asked permission to fire, Mr. President, and the president said, "Yes, but you fire only water cannons, not your firearms. Let those with the firearms be on the second line." My father remembered that. it became the mantra of PSC that we should not fire at our own volition. We should always leave it to the highest authority before we can fire. We always tell the PSC, we are a protective force. We are not an aggressive force. We are not a combat force. We are only fired upon when we need to protect the president. And so my father knew that. So went to him to say, let's counterattack. He didn't mean he's going to fire at people. We can counterattack by massing forces, threaten, or fire at specific targets, physical targets. It's not at people necessarily.
Some people also believe that your father, Fabian Ver, was behind the assassination of Ninoy Aquino.
Oh,
And
yes.
two names are bandied about, Imelda Marcos, Fabian Ver. What do you know of your father's involvement in this?
Well, and I'm glad you asked that, because really this is where I think somehow the information get lost.
Okay.
And it gets repeated that my father is the mastermind. We had the Agrava Commission.
Correct.
And my father was exonerated from command responsibility. It was command being the chief of staff, and that the soldiers were there involved for failure to I guess, give them the enough proper orders to protect Senator Aquino. So
But the first time the Agrava Commission did, it was still under Marcos's rule,
but
correct?
this was other Marcos.
Yeah.
So people
the
did not
feeling,
believe that.
Yeah, the feeling
this-
was that
yes.
that this was a cover-up.
Yeah, and at that time my father was very ecstatic that he was exonerated from that. Okay. And then 86 happened, and we
Correct.
were exiled.
Yes, yes.
And my father wanted to clear his name all along. And let me say, I believed he was not involved at all.
Why?
Because of the events that followed immediately after the assassination. The thing happened in the airport. I was at the quarters nursing a feverish baby, 11-year-old son, and my father barged in, who was in slippers, and said, get your troops in red alert, something happened at the airport. I learned later on the assassination. If he were the mastermind, I think he would be in an operations room, the military, operation with all the communications, monitoring every detail.
Yes.
Maybe the flight arrival, or the troops in place, or things. But he was there in his slippers. He was in our quarters. I learned later on from my sister that he and my mother were supposed to go to LA because he was invited by one of his classmates from the, I guess, Kentucky Police College to be with him. He then became the chief of police of LA, or one of the cities in the
Yes.
LA county. And so then I realized it was also a surprise to him. The second thing that I remember is when a couple of hours later, General Custodio, Luther Custodio, who is the commanding general of the Aviation Security Command, the one in charge of the security of the airport, who was a former officer of the Presidential Security Command. He was, I think, an intelligence officer. So he was, my father called him to report to him. And in the office, while I was there at the door, behind the door, I could hear that my father was asking, what happened? What happened? And the words that struck me why I knew my father did not know anything was, he said, and if I may say in Tagalog, he said, naloko na. Ginawa niyong martir si Ninoy. Lintik na tayong lahat. Nalintikan na lahat tayong lahat. And to me, that is a significant statement.
Yes, yes, yes. This is
That my father knows the effects of assassinating Ninoy Aquino.
correct. So to
Yes.
your mind, your father wasn't involved and
Involved.
found out about it afterwards.
Right.
After,
Now,
go ahead.
now, if I may continue.
Yes.
So he wanted so much. We were exiled. He wanted so much to come and clear his name.
Yes, this is one of the big questions.
Yes.
Why has Ver never spoken?
Right. And then President Cory Aquino commissioned a court under Justice Hermosissima.
Yes.
My father said, I'm going home. And requested to return to the Philippines so that he could appear in the court and defend himself in public. My father was, of course, the first one on the list, on the charge list. But he was never allowed on the grounds that he was threat to national security. So he was never allowed. So the court proceedings went on without him defending himself. But to our surprise, and to our very welcome surprise, he was acquitted.
Yes.
With all the experts that they brought in
Yes.
from Australia, FBI, and all that, he was acquitted by an Aquino court. We feared that it was going to be rigged. We feared that he was going to be convicted.
Right.
But no. Yes.
And yet, again, your father didn't speak at all during that time period.
He
right?
thought
He
the
thought that was
truth
enough.
has come out. Yeah, he had always believed, okay, I don't have to say anything. That's it.
Let me ask you about Bobby Ongpin. We talked about this earlier. So this year, for the 27th anniversary, Bobby Ongpin gave an interview to the Inquirer, and he talked about Ver and
Right.
and I think it was Ver and Imelda as
Right.
part of the triumvirate under Marcos.
Okay.
How did you react to Ongpin's article? And
Well, first, again, I like to think that my recollection is different from Bobby Ongpin. As a triumvirate, I would say my father does not have any political ambition. How can he be a part of the triumvirate? He was always just a supporting person, a very loyal person, and we know he's only loyal to one man.
to Ferdinand Marcos.
And he will never, of course, be like a partner to the president.
He would never allow
Never,
himself to be a
never.
partner.
He
you
has
say?
no political ambitions. He doesn't have. So I don't think that being part of the triumvirate would be a misnomer.